Hello and welcome to
The Fantastically Terrible Podcast, Episode 31, Golden Apples in Norse Mythology. Last week, in Episode 30, we looked at golden apples in Greek mythology. Today we're going to continue learning about golden apples, but this time in Norse mythology. They give immortality, strength, fight disease, they slice, they dice, as long as you take them regularly. It's like a prescription from your family doctor, or an illegal drug from your pusher, depending on how you want to look at it, of course.
So you're saying in this story we're going to focus on Ethune, and she's either a doctor or a drug dealer.
She's your pusher.
She was dealing out them apples and the Aesir just couldn't say no.
Couldn't say no, they couldn't. They're stuck on it. It's like meth.
It's an interesting way to look at Norse mythology.
Well, it is already very heavy metal.
Give me them apples.
The best and only story in Norse mythology that talks about the golden apples is the Kidnapping of Ethune. Ethune is described as the keeper of the fruit that imparts immortality.
Or the pusher.
Or the pusher. Ethune is from the Old Norse meaning the rejuvenating one.
Oh.
You know, it's kind of like Rick James when he said, cocaine's a hell of a drug. She is the goddess of fertility, beauty, and youthfulness. Now, my question is it before you take the apple that you think of her of all those things? Or is it after you take the apple because it's kicked in?
I think her mother is a goddess of youth and life, so she naturally has that.
Okay.
And her magic makes the apples immortal.
Oh.
So when you eat of her apples, you get that. But for a limited time.
For a limited time.
Limited time offer.
She's got that down pat. She charges a little bit, and she's got...
She don't charge a thing. Well, room and board, maybe. The Aesir let her stay there.
Oh,
or the Aesir.
Aesir.
We're going to attempt very lightly to pronounce these correctly.
Yeah.
Very lightly.
So...
Don't expect everything, but we'll give it a shot.
Yeah. Okay. There is only one surviving myth about Ethune, which recounts her kidnapping. The central troublemaker in the whole story is, of course, Loki, pronounced Loke. Aren't you Loke?
I'm Loki for you.
Is the wily trickster and god of Norse mythology. He can be playful and helpful, but is often malicious, irreverent, and nihilistic. I like him.
All right. These episodes help me to sort things out.
Okay.
And then we share what we learn.
All right.
Were the Norse gods immortal?
Well, were they?
One big difference between the Norse and the Greek gods is that the Norse gods, or Aesir, are not immortal.
No?
No, they're not. They remain young, as we discussed, but they need to eat the golden apples of Ethune regularly. Not just one. They have to keep eating them. Her apples keep them young. They also ward off diseases, disabilities. They help them to remain vigorous and beautiful and young through countless ages. Big difference, right?
Interesting.
And the way it worked, as I mentioned, they were magic apples. And she would keep them in what they call her casket, like a chest. And no matter how many apples she took out of the casket, the same number always remained in it. So it was an endless supply. I like to say she had an everlasting supply of everlasting life. So for now, let's hear about the kidnapping of Ethune. The story starts with Thor, Loki, and Honir. And again, I'm not sure if I'm saying these right, but I'm trying. They find themselves hungry and a little too close to, in the Marvel movies, they say Jotunheim, but it's more like Jotunheimar, the region ruled by giants. And these giants were enemies of the Aesir. So it's not the safest place for them to be. Unfortunately, they're far from Asgard, which I learned sounds more like Ausgarder, and food was scarce. Luckily, they came upon a herd of oxen and hunted one down. They prepared their meal, but when they tried to cook the meat on the fire, nothing happened. It wouldn't cook. No matter how long they had it over the fire, it stayed the same. When they were sufficiently frustrated, they heard a voice in the sky and looked up. They saw a massive eagle circle around and land on a branch in a nearby oak tree. The giant eagle said his name was Thiazi, or Thiazi. Sounds more Italian to me. I don't know. The three companions knew him to be a frost giant. Uh-oh. Mm-hmm. Thiazi smiled and explained that his magic was keeping their meat from cooking.
Now, you pronounce his name with, like, Italian accent, so now I'm thinking of him talking like the Godfather.
Hey, it's my magic that is not letting your meat cook.
Yeah, you just completely...
Okay, so Thiazi is now Italian in our story. Yeah, I want some spaghetti meatballs.
I'm trying to get him back to the Swedish chef. Anyway.
The Muppet Show.
Yeah.
Good times. So Loki rolled his eyes. This is my recounting of the story. Loki rolls his eyes and says something like, "Okay, wise ass. Okay, wise ass. What do you want?" Thiazi raised a feathery eyebrow, maybe a mustache, and offered him a deal. He would release his magic spell if they allowed him to eat his fill of the meat. They were obviously not happy about it, but they were so hungry they agreed to the deal. The three Aesir watched as their meal was gobbled up by the giant eagle. When Loki saw him taking the best parts of the meat, he completely lost his temper. He impulsively grabbed a large branch and lunged it at the eagle and drove it into his back. Big mistake. Yeah, you'd think he has the upper hand here, but no. The eagle screeched and flew straight up. He flew so fast, Loki didn't have time to let go. Now it was Thiazi's turn to cause some pain as Loki desperately hung on to the branch. Then Thiazi flew just low enough for Loki to bang his legs and feet against boulders and mountains and treetops. You know, he's just whipping him around.
Youch!
Yes, Loki thought his arms would be torn from his shoulders. When he couldn't take it anymore, he begged Thiazi to set him down, but the eagle refused. Loki begged some more. The eagle just continued to bang him around as Loki screamed out in pain, begging him to stop. Exactly. I mean, that's really painful.
Let me down!
The eagle finally offered Loki a deal. "I'll let you down if you swear to lure the goddess Ethune out of Ausgarder with her golden apples at a specific time and place." Loki didn't really have a choice and agreed. The eagle let him down and he returned to his companions, but he kept his lips sealed. No matter how many questions they asked him about what happened, he refused to say a word.
On the agreed upon date, Loki found Ethune in her garden and began to chat her up. "Hey, can I have some of those apples?" No,
Those are some nice apples.
It's like meth. He told her he came across the most perfect golden apples just beyond the gates of Asgard. He invited her to bring her apples to compare them to the new apples and see which were the most precious. "Hey, I got a better stash over there. Want to check it out? Let's see what purity's better."
Exactly.
Right?
Bring the equipment to measure the purity.
His story was so compelling that innocent Ethune agreed. I don't know if she's innocent.
She was
Anyone
innocent
who's
enough
pushing
to fall
golden
for
apples
Loki.
on other people is not completely innocent.
The apples give them everything.
I know.
And she doesn't get anything.
Then she really is innocent.
There you go.
Okay. She took her apples and walked with Loki to a nearby forest. Thiazi swooped down, grabbed Ethune and her apples, and flew away home. It didn't take long before the Aesir, or Aesir, started to grow old and lose their strength.
I'm melting.
Did their teeth fall out?
I don't know how far the process went, But they right away needed her back.
But wait a second. I always pictured Odin to be really old anyway.
They do depict him as old.
So how
That's
is this
such a good point. I never thought about
contradiction?
it. If this provides youthfulness, why is he old?
Unless he just keeps at I don't know, 60. That's his youth.
I don't know.
It's really odd.
Okay, we'll discuss. We'll put a pin in that. We'll discuss it at the end.
So they quickly gathered for a meeting to find out what had happened to Ethune. They soon learned that the last person seen with Ethune was Loki, of course. They seized Loki.
And everyone rolled their eyes and said, ugh, again.
They seized Loki and threatened him with all sorts of torture, but he held steady. When he could see that they were not joking about putting him to death, he was finally frightened.
Oh, you're going to kill me? Okay, I give up.
Yeah, right, you're going to kill me. Come on.
Oh, you are?
Come on, we hang out all the time. I mess you guys over all the time. Anyway, he confessed and agreed to look for Ethune in Jotunheimer.
No, Jotunheimer or Jotunheimer.
That sounds like yogurt.
Well, it's
I want some Jotunheimer yogurt. What's in it? It's giant smashed up.
Jotunheimer.
Jotunheimer. With one condition. He'd only go if Freya lent him her hawk's plumage.
So this was a transformation.
I thought he was able to do that anyway.
Apparently there were some things he can transform into.
It wasn't limited. Crow was one of them.
Well
we'll
he
talk
wanted
about that.
to be a hawk in this one. So he said, I'll go if I get your fancy feathers.
It's like saying, hey,
I want to get something out of this.
Hey, I want your Lamborghini.
Yeah. It's it's Loki. He why not?
Crazy guy. Okay. Of course she agreed, and off Loki flew in search of Ethune. He eventually found Thiazi's palace. Lucky for him, the giant was out and Ethune was there alone.
Whoo!
Now my question is, once you meet up with this guy again, if Loki's the guy that says, hey, let's go to the forest and let's take the equipment to see which purity is better, the apples, and then all of a sudden this eagle comes and swoops you down and then he comes in, are you going to trust him?
I see. Like, why would Ethune trust Loki to bring her back? I don't know if he had a discussion with her.
Right.
In the story, it says he turned her into a nut. So
That's
maybe
nutty.
he didn't. Oh, you're so cheesy.
Okay.
Maybe there was no discussion. He just entered, snapped his fingers, bloop. Ethune was turned into a nut for easy transport.
I kind of picture that like in the Mario game.
Yeah.
Is there magic mushrooms too?
Maybe he jumped on her head and she turned into a nut.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you need to continue with the story.
All right. In any case, he took Ethune, the nut, into his hawk's talons and hightailed it out of there as fast as his wings could carry him. When Thiazi returned to his palace and saw Ethune was gone, he ran outside, saw a hawk flying in the distance. He turned himself into the mighty eagle and chased after Loki.
The mighty eagle!
Loki could feel the wind from Thiazi's massive wings as he got closer. The Aesir could see the eagle pursuing the hawk and quickly gathered wood shavings and piled them up into a massive heap. Loki, the hawk, flew past the pile. When the coast was clear, the rapidly aging gods lit the wood shavings. The massive flames shot upwards so fast the eagle couldn't stop in time and his tail feathers caught on fire. The distraction gave the gods just enough time to get in position and kill Thiazi the giant. But of course, things didn't end there.
Oh,
because they never do.
They
Not
never
until
do.
Ragnarok. The big concert, Ragnarok. When Thiazi's daughter, Skadi, swore revenge, I said,
what?
I said. Sounds like a Terminator. The Icer. Who are you? I'm the Icer. Anyway, the Icer offered her one of them in marriage. She agreed. Odin also took Thiazi's eyes and cast them into heaven, where they became 2 stars. So,
Sort of a penance for killing the giant, I suppose.
he's got an obsession with eyeballs.
But it's a kind thing to make you a
He
star.
took
for
out
your
his own
dead.
eyeball.
See, that's another difference with the Norse and
Yes.
the Greek gods is Odin is obsessed with knowledge to the point where he gives up his eyes so he can see everything.
Yeah, he's kind of less of a misogynistic dick.
well,
Like, Zeus is just awful.
Zeus is a horn dog,
Yes.
and most of the Greek gods are children of Zeus, whereas Odin only had 4. Although they had different baby mamas, but only 4. Whereas Zeus like populated all the Olympians, whether his children or demigods, or there were obviously similarities between the two.
Not a self-mutilation. Like when Odin crucifies himself on the Yggdrasil, the tree.
Mm-hmm.
He takes out his eye for knowledge, all that knowledge stuff. Whereas I can't see Zeus doing that.
No, Zeus would not
Be
do
like,
that at all.
I don't think so. You
No.
can keep your knowledge.
Yeah, he'd just turn into
She's
an
kinda
animal
pretty.
and run
I gotta
away.
go.
Exactly. And poor Hera. We have to do a show on poor Hera.
Yeah.
She's always painted in a bad way, but
But her motives are kind of, I mean, it's written by men, it has to be said. But her motives are kind of terrible because she goes after the women instead
she's
of like
also the
going after
goddess
Zeus.
of marriage and monogamy.
But she doesn't go after her
Monogamy.
husband to set her husband straight. She goes after these poor women who end up being,
I know.
Yeah.
What she does is awful, but her story is also awful.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about Loki is I've read plenty. I love Norse mythology.
And he's fantastic. I love Loki.
They say that he is most likely older than the other gods. And it's because of that trickster aspect to him. And you can see a lot of it very similar to Crow and the Native American, or Rabbit, or Coyote. That's sort of trickster element where he, you kind of feel bad for him, and then he does these things that you think, if he's a god, he's going to be able to get out of it. But he kind of falls into that trickster where they kind of do something. Sometimes it works. Like Reynard, he gets away with it. Reynard the fox. And sometimes it doesn't work out.
Yeah, Loki doesn't really. We could do a show on him because he ends very badly.
Yeah, they all do.
Yeah.
They all do. That's the interesting thing. It's like these gods are going to die.
It's quite a separation. In the Norse pantheon, they do go through difficult times, and they know most of them know they're going to die at Ragnarok. The Greek gods don't have any of that problem.
No. So Norse mythology with the golden apples made sense to me. There's an actual function to them. In Greek mythology, they're kind of like, yeah, so you got these apples. And what do?
They're really pretty.
That's
Well,
just pretty.
as in our previous episode, that's why we showed that there were actually 3 different stories.
With the Norse, I feel like it kind of gives you this.
They're more of a purpose, of
There's
course.
more of a purpose.
Absolutely.
It's more like logical. You're like, okay, yeah, I see that. Thank you. You've given me a reason for this. So you got a pusher, this Ethune, who goes and, hey, you want some golden meth? It'll make you look pretty. It'll make you look really pretty. All your teeth are going to fall out.
If you don't.
if you don't, right? And it's the gods that need it. That makes sense to me.
Right. It kind of makes them associate a little bit more with humans.
And it's a little bit more tied together. The story's tied together. Whereas with the Greek, it's just, oh yeah, these golden apples, yeah. What do we need them for? Oh yeah, they give immortality to humans. Yeah, we're never going to give it to you. Why, thank you.
I got some apples.
Want some golden apple pie? Never going to get it.
Besides the golden apples and immortality, another big difference between Norse and Greek mythology is fate. The Norse had the Norns, and the Greeks had the Fates. The Norns were female beings who are basically the authors of fate. They weaved the destinies of every living being, including the gods. No one could escape their fate. This makes the Norns the most powerful entities in existence, even more so than the gods.
In Greek mythology, fate is usually depicted as 3 goddesses who determine human destinies. This includes things like your lifespan, your allotment of misery or suffering, but the Olympian gods had an escape clause. They were excluded. In the older myths, the Fates were the daughters of Nyx, but later the daughters of Zeus. so they were obviously not as powerful as Zeus and his generation of Olympians. However, they still had enormous power, and even Zeus was unable to overturn their decisions.
So that's a big difference.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah. One is the Olympians are excluded, whereas in Norse mythology, no one is excluded.
Well, no wonder the Olympians are so rotten.
I suppose so.
I wanted to circle back to something I said earlier.
Yes, you made a very interesting observation about Odin.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, my question is, if Odin eats the apples, the golden apples, which provide eternal youth, why is he always old?
You know, it's such a good question. I did a little research and I couldn't find any information to answer that question.
So you came up empty?
I came up empty. Perhaps it's just the way he's depicted by writers and artists. If he's the original All-Father, he's there since the beginning, the creator of the universe, people will think of him as old and wise. If anyone listening happens to know the answer, please add a note in the comments section. We would be absolutely grateful forever, for eternity, since this is the everlasting immortal episode.
Yes.
So please, there's no limit on time. It could be 5 years from now.
Right.
And you can see this video and add your note to the bottom. We would really appreciate it.
The Fantastically Terrible Character or creature this week is Sæhrímnir, the mighty boar.
What makes him so special? Well, you've heard of infinity stones and everlasting gobstoppers, but have you heard of everlasting bacon?
Delicious, but not if you're a vegetarian.
This might make you a vegetarian by the end of this episode.
Okay.
I'd like you to imagine being an immortal god.
Okay, not bad.
How about an immortal boar?
Okay, not great, but not bad.
Now, what if you were an immortal boar who was incredibly delicious?
Okay, this is starting to sound like Prometheus or Atlas type scenario of pain, and that never ends. For more on that, please listen to or watch episode 30, Golden Apples in Greek Mythology.
Now, I'm going to try to pronounce his name, Sæhrímnir, because he was delicious, was sliced and cooked, or maybe cooked and sliced, I'm not sure, every day by Chef Sæhrímnir, and eaten by all of the fallen heroes of Valhalla every night.
Wow.
So every day they would cook him, every night they would eat him. So he had a little period in between to heal and run around.
Come whole.
Isn't that terrible?
That's pretty terrible.
It's just like Atlas holding up the heavens. Just over and over again, they're cooking and eating him. He was apparently so large that his bacon could single-handedly feed every warrior who's ever fallen in battle from the beginning of the world.
Wow.
That's
a
a
lot of bacon.
That's so much bacon.
Do they have eggs?
Probably. It is Valhalla, right? You get to drink, be drunk, eat whatever you want. Apparently they have, this is like Homer Simpson's dream come true right here. There was only one exception.
Okay.
Odin never ate of the delicious bacon.
What?
Apparently he would just feed it to his dogs. What do you think might be the reason?
He hates pork.
Wouldn't it be nice if he was a vegetarian?
He's secretly Muslim or Jewish? I don't know.
That would change everything.
Everything.
Apparently, legend tells us, and I'm going to quote here, and I'll have a link to the text, quote, "But no food does he need. Wine is both food and drink to him." So I guess Odin has a strictly liquid diet.
He's a wino. Odin is a wino. So Odin was drunk pretty much all the time, is what you're telling me.
Well, you know, looking back at this episode, it was not our intention to describe Ethune as a drug dealer and the Aesir as addicts and Odin as an alcoholic. But apparently that's what we did.
Yeah, we did that.
Yes.
I think they need an AA meeting. That's it for today. 7Robots, Fantastically Terrible podcast is by Miguel Guerra and Suzy Diaz, and written by Suzy.
We want to thank everyone for listening. If you enjoy our show, we're so happy. If you haven't subscribed or followed us yet, please do. It really helps us out with our statistics. And honestly, we don't know you're listening unless you let us know. So please like this episode or even leave a comment and say hello. We'd love to hear from you. For more information on this episode, including links to everything we reference, please visit our website at www.7robots.com/podcast.
Remember to check out Ghost Metal, our free comic on Webtoon and now on Tapas. Read each week as we serve you bite-sized sci-fi and horror stories on a macabre menu of detestable delights. A new episode is up every Friday for your abhorrent amusement. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.